Thank you for coming to the Completely Siffable breakout session. I am sorry that this has to be recorded. Unfortunate internet issues. It's very common nowadays, I hear. This is a good alternative, though. I know I had it kind of break up in the middle of one of the sessions, and I was just at a really good point. So if you were at that point with me, thanks for bearing through that with the disconnects. Hopefully, you can watch this and learn whatever it is you missed. Anyone who's in the third session, this is your shot to get to see it. So I am Leah Sauter. I am a interior designer at Environments at Work. It's a fabulous dealership in Boston, Mass. I love my job. I love the people I work with. I have been a dealer designer for the last 12 years at 3 dealerships total in different states in the country. And then I've been using CET for the last 10 years. When I first started, I had no idea what I was doing. Um, and now I have a lot of ideas of what I'm doing. Uh, um, but it has really evolved as a program. It's such a great program. I'm a huge fan. And I have really grown from using it as a rendering tool. That's kind of how I started using it. I'm sure that's how many of you started using it. Some of you still may be using it that way, and that's fine. We're all at different spots on the journey. Um, but now I try to really use it as to its fullest potential from the very beginning to the very end. So CET comes out with me when I go to a customer meeting and I take notes in CET, I change around things, I do live design, I run my SIF based on my CET file, drawing file, and then I do my install plans in CET. So I have really grown to use it to its fullest. So the topic, completely siffable. Strive for the unicorn. When I say this, I say it because getting a drawing from the drawing stage to the SIF file without touching the SIF, a completely clean transferable drawing, is very hard to achieve. I've been trying to do it now for a while, and just when I think I'm awesome and I feel like I've got it all, I've optioned everything out, everything's in there, I've got my LSATs in, inevitably there is some sort of disconnect, whether it's my vertical light blocks didn't make it in, or the quantity's off, or like there is something unfinished, or there's a symbol that I brought in for the sake of the symbol for the drawing, but it's not actually accounted for in my SIF. So whatever the reason, there always seems to be some reason for having to touch that SIF. So the goal of today is nobody is perfect. The program's not perfect. It's hard to get it all to work flawlessly. But the goal of today is to kind of shift your mindset into striving for that drawing that can be completely siffable. It doesn't mean we're all going to achieve it right away every time. Build a stronger foundation. It's kind of the point of what I'm saying is your drawing is the first step in this whole design process. If you can get that to be reliable, accurate, siffable, that is your first step. That will build a nice, strong foundation. So then going forward, everything on top of it works a little bit better also. Doesn't make every step perfect, but it definitely helps. I like to say hands off that SIF. And this is a new thing for me. You're not wrong if you go back into a SIF and add product, or you go back in and, adjust the finishes or whatever it is you do. That's not wrong. It's the way I've been doing it forever. But I have noticed, and this is based on no data whatsoever, but it is based on my last 12 years of experience. I feel like I'm finally realizing the less you touch the SIF, the less likely you are to make errors. And I firmly believe that we're human beings. We go in there, we remove product, we switch lines around, we add finishes, all sorts of crazy stuff. And it's fine, but the more you touch it, the more chances you are to mess it up. And by the way, I will say this does not pertain to double checks. I am 100% a true believer in the check and then the double check. So when I say hands off that SIF, I don't mean don't check it. I just mean try to make anything you can all set in your drawing so that by the time you get to your SIF, it's already in there, it's already accounted for. And then this is also kind of like a frame of mind thing. If you won the lottery tomorrow, would your design team hate you? And I don't mean hate you because they're jealous, because we all know we'd be out of there, right? Um, but if someone were to go into your drawing for whatever reason, maybe you're just out sick, or you went on vacation, or maybe you just had a little baby or something, who knows? Um, your team, someone on your team has to know when they go into that drawing where it is. They need to know, first of all, can they find the drawing? That seems so basic, but I know that it happens all the time where you can't find the right drawing. And then, what alternative is it? And then once you find it, can I run a SIF from this? This is all stuff that keep in the back of your mind as you're drawing. Someone would need to know if they had to access that drawing. So I just say make your drawing transferable to others. Just use clear communication. Okay, now that we're in the CET drawing, I have kind of identified some areas where the drawing tends to fail me as far as getting into the SIF accurately. One of those areas is finishes. I cannot seem to get it 100% of the time. Um, I think I option everything out. I use schemes, and then inevitably there's some little undecided finish somewhere in one of my symbols. This is very common. It happens a lot. So it basically takes you, first of all, being aware of this and caring instead of going back into your SIF file and updating that finish, putting in the time up front and finishing it out right in that drawing. So just remember that as you go. Try to get in the habit of that. And then going through, and I like to use the validate box. This, it should be called validate in any, I'm a Hayworth user, so I have a canvas tab, but you'll have something maybe a little bit different if you're not, but it should be called maybe check project or validate project. And this is where you can really see kind of the status of how that SIF file is looking. So in this case, oh no, I swear everything's optioned out. If you look at everything, it all has a finish, but inevitably there's an undecided option. I click on it, brings me to this table. That's the culprit. When I right click on it, query it, I can see I chose Applegate, but I chose the wrong Applegate. I chose undecided. And I know um, that's not what we want. So I'm going to go in, and you probably have your way that you update finishes. We all probably do it a slightly different way. I'm going to choose the right one. I'm going to hit upper, and I'm going to apply it. So now when I right click and query, there we go, all optioned out. So you would basically just go through the check project or validate project and make sure everything is all filled in. Now sometimes it'll say, see, one of 71, yeah, one of 71. And this is just a warning about railroaded fabric. So I can ignore that because I know I've chosen all railroaded. But if it says one of 71, don't freak out. You can easily, it's usually something like a panel tile or a work surface, something you've just used 71 times. And if you didn't finish it out one time, you probably didn't finish it out all the other times. And if you go to schemes, you can definitely solve that easily, okay? So you can fill it out here. And one other thing I want you to pay attention to in schemes is apply to. I've been using a lot more selected group. If you apply to all, it does just that. Anything in your drawing that is a work surface or under the work surface tab is going to get these finishes. So think when you do tables, sometimes you use, like in the Hayworth line. Say you'd use planes tables. There's conference tables, there's training tables. You might not want those to be the same. So in that case, I'd really use selected group. And that's when you just select the group like before. I do it usually before I'm in the scheme. Okay, but you can do it during and hit select a group and apply it to just that group. It's really helpful if you have conference rooms that are different finishes or whatnot. If you don't hit that and you hit all, you're going to get everything. This overrules anything you have chosen. So be careful. I'm sure we've all made a mistake in the past with that. It's so awesome until it's not and it turns on you and you forget about something that was supposed to be a different finish. So if that has happened to you in the past, if you've been burned, I do recommend using the select group. Sometimes I use it even when like I have all the same panels. I'll just do it, hit select group, and then highlight all my workstations, and like do it that way. But it's up to you. My point is take the time up front, try to get all those finishes filled in however you do it. And then when you go to run your SIF file, all those finishes will be in there. I am aware that Project Matrix has, the autofill of the finishes. I've used that in the past. It's a great feature. I still don't think anything beats getting it right from the get-go. And another note I'll make on that. We're designers. Well, not all of us, but those of us who are designers, it is so nice to see finishes applied. I feel much more designery being able to apply finishes in here and actually see them. And no, they're not the same as real life, but at least it's an idea of what you'll get. So if you're not doing it in here, I highly suggest you do. It's a little bit of a missed opportunity if you're just doing it in your SIF file. Um, don't pay attention to these finishes are weird. I don't know what I was just this is a real project that got installed, but I was playing around with this stuff for this presentation. Okay, so that's finishes. The next quirk I notice is okay, how often do you have to bring in a symbol that is not in CET and it's not in whatever specification um, program you have. Like for me, it's project symbols, project matrix. So what do you do? You can bring in that symbol. You can go on to SketchUp. You can find that symbol. But then when you run that SIF, it's not going to be in there. And now you're doing what I advise not to do. You're going back in, you're adjusting that SIF file, and you're basically creating a breeding ground for error because you're messing around with the SIF and you're a human being. So here, for example, let's start simple and basic, and then we'll go a little bit more advanced. Here is a level 4 chair. Level 4 is not in CET and it's not in Project Matrix. I actually don't know if that's true, but for this example, let's just go with it. I could be right on this one. The customer already loves this chair. We're going to use it in the project. But what do? I don't have a symbol for it. So in this case, I was able to find a chair. This is a pretty typical looking chair. I was able to find one that looks very similar. This is a Hayworth chair. So as I pull it in, it's going to have, let's look, all that Hayworth information. Oh, yeah. So that's not good because now what are you going to accidentally order the wrong chair? It could happen. Okay, so if you forget to go back in your SIF and change it or whatever. So we want this chair to have the correct catalog info, the info for this level 4 designs chair. So I basically use the right click and query like I use for so many things. And then I hit make special. So you guys should all have the right click and query or something very similar, no matter what manufacturer you use. Um, you also should have a make special, but it might have slightly different verbiage. So look for something that looks like it because it should be very similar. And this is where, and I will say, it says make special, but don't think of it like that. That really narrows in the scope of everything. If you think of it, pretend it said, and maybe the developers will eventually do this, but pretend it said something like modify catalog info, because that's what you can do here. Once you realize that, it really opens up the door to so many possibilities. You go in, and this is where you modify whatever you want the product to say. So you can change the part number, you can change description, price. The only quirk I can't get with this one is the catalog code seems to revert back to SPC. It thinks you're trying to make a special, so even when I change it, it goes back. Um, Hopefully we can feature request that to change. The manufacturer code I think does change just fine. Um, so you hit OK, and then yes, it's basically exactly what you would do if you were making a special. And then when you query it, sorry, it will say all the correct information. So then you can copy that symbol out and use that symbol instead of um, nothing or the wrong symbol or just some empty symbol without any catalog info. Okay, so that's kind of the basic. If there's a symbol that looks very close to what you want, just use that, modify the catalog info. All right, so do you guys like to bring in symbols from SketchUp? I do. I think it's cool. It's fun. It's fun to see what's out there. Um, a lot of times manufacturers on their websites have SketchUp symbols. Sometimes when I search SketchUp, it doesn't always show up, but if I go on their website, it does. I don't know why that is. But say you found the perfect symbol in SketchUp. This example I have here is, oh, one more thing before I continue. On that chair, you'll notice when my right click's not working weird. Hold on. When it has the same number of, when I query it, it has the same number of finishes as the level 4 chair. Well, you wouldn't know that, but I'm telling you it does. Um, so that is what you're shooting for. When you bring in that like symbol, you want to shoot for a symbol that has the same or more finishes in the finish string, okay? Because that allows you to actually option it out. If you don't, then you're not going to be able to option it out, okay, to fully make it so it can go from drawing to SIF file without touching that SIF. You'll have to go into the SIF, change the options. So try to find something with the finish string that has the same, or it can have more, because more means you just delete what it says. So you can be fine with more. But when it doesn't have enough, then you start to run into problems. So try to keep that in mind. All right, so we're going a step further on the shelf. So this is a symbol I have imported from SketchUp. And here, I'll use my practice. It has, if you right click, it has no query because it's just that. It's just a symbol. So you can't actually have, it has no catalog info. There's this beautiful little button here on my right click, also add catalog info. You might be thinking, why isn't she just doing that? Right now, CET does not allow you to option it out using this feature. So again, this is something they could have in the future, but right now you can't do it. So I don't advise using it because again, you'd have to go into your SIF file and adjust all those options. If there's a way to do it in my drawing, I would rather spend a little bit of time to find that way. And it's kind of cool because once you figure it out once, I mean, the same things just keep coming up quite a bit. Once you figure it out once, you've got it. So you can just do it every time. It's not like, I don't know, you're not recreating the wheel every time. Um, so you have the symbol you want to show. What you do is you pull in a random symbol. I'm using the Hayworth belong tile. And again, look for something with a finish string the same or more than the part you want. It does not matter what it looks like. It can look nothing like the symbol you want. You're not going to see it. You're just using the data for it. So then you're going to go to your next step and you're going to do exactly what I showed you before. You're going to query it and you're going to make it have the data you want. Correct all the catalog info to be what you want it. You will change the price, you'll change the part number, all of it. And then this is where you would put in this case, there's only one finish in the finish string. So I only needed a part with one finish. So I've changed it to blue. Okay. Yes. Okay. So that data is in this symbol now. So you have the correct catalog info and you have the correct symbol, but you need to merge them together. So for this, I use the edit graphics symbols and I go to replace graphics. And the way I remember this, always click on the part you want to see and then the smarts you want it to be. Okay, click OK. Now you'll see when I right click, query this, there it is. I've got the correct catalog info. I've got my option, I've got my price. The only thing I don't have is that SPC thing. Always getting in the way, but that's okay. Um, So yeah, you can do that for any of those SketchUp symbols or anything you bring in. I will do it again. Actually, I'll do it down here. I've taken it a little bit further because we all know in these tutorials things seem so simple, they're so clean cut, but then you go to do it in real life and there's inevitably some issue with it, or yours is more complex. So I was trying to think of where do I get tripped up a lot, and I think a COM would be just that. I haven't been using a ton of COMs. I think so many fabric manufacturers are grading in their fabrics, it seems, but which is great. But say you have a COM, it still happens all the time. So the example here is a high tower bench. You've pulled it in through SketchUp, and you're going to do the same thing I just taught you, where you would find a like item with the finish string that was similar or the same. Um, then you're going to make that symbol a special. And I think I already did it here. Yep. So we added all that info that we wanted. We changed the finishes to what right now it's just saying COM in the grade, because what we want is when you do the SIF file, typically how we do COMs, and I think it's pretty universal, you want your line item for the sofa or for the bench, and then you want a separate line item for that COM fabric if it's not a graded in situation. But how do you do that when you just have the bench, you know? So um, I would basically fill in COM, and then do that same edit graphics. So replace graphics, click on the item you want to see, then the smarts you want it to be. Hit OK. So now this will have the correct catalog info. Okay, high tower plasma bench. And then to get that COM line, I've pulled, and this is so random and kind of weird, but it has worked. I pull the tiniest symbol I can find. It's a bezel power module. Um, and I modify that. I use the exact same method. I right click and query it, and then I make it a special and I say what I want it to say. Um, you can also, another way to do this, you can add a pick list and put your fabric in that way, whatever you're more comfortable with. I'm more of a symbol person. Um, I don't know. Maybe I'm just more visual, even though it's not even meant to be seen. But yeah, so you modify it here, click the correct price, okay. And now this little bezel will have your COM line, and I put it in with, oh, one other thing I need to note. Don't forget to delete. Delete the original. Delete the originals. Um, you really don't forget that. That could really be problematic. Um, so now you have that bezel. It's right in there. This is great in that it comes in at elevation of 0, so you can really hide it. And then I like to, no, I actually like to create a block out of this. So if you highlight it, right click and create block now, and you can label it high tower bench or whatever the label is. Now that COM fabric is staying with that bench. It's still going to be two separate lines in your SIF file, but you're not going to have this random bezel off to the side, or when you copy that bench again, you'll actually grab the correct, you'll grab it all. You'll grab the COM with it. So it's just one step further, um, but it can be pretty helpful and it can help you not have to add that COM line after the fact. This is just the same example or the same idea, just a different example. I use the custom shape tool on this one. I was just playing around with that. I really want to get good at that because you could really create anything if you think about it. With the custom shape tool, you could create any visual you want if you were really good at it. And with this edit the replace graphics thing, you can assign any sort of catalog info you want. So together, those two things, the world is your oyster. You could do a lot. So I'm going to query this. It's a Hayworth work surface. Customer wants it cut around a column, not in the field. It's actually a special we're going to order, so I'm going to modify it to be the correct special number. Okay, fill in all the correct data. Hit OK. And do your replace graphics feature. So hit this, click on the part you want to see, then the smarts you want it to be. Hit OK. That's just a where like the rotation, if you want to change how it aligns and rotates and all that, that's where you can do it. I never typically touch that, but you could. Okay, so now we have it here. Right click and query. It's the symbol we want with the information we want. It's pretty great. All right, so that is the big one. It takes a little practice. It's a little quirky, I understand, but once you get it down, it's pretty awesome. And to me, it is so worth spending the time up front to get these symbols in there, to get them right. It can drastically reduce your errors, you guys. It really can. So try to get those drawings as accurate as you can. The Another thing I want to mention is, and I mentioned it before, pick lists. Um, Pick lists and favorites I use. I actually don't use them that much, but when there's something, I'll use them when it's after the fact. Like if I forgot to put something in, I'll throw it in a pick list just so it at least gets in my drawing. So I know if I were to run a SIF, it would be in there. So Um, for us, it's in the Canvas tab. It should be in whatever your manufacturer tab is. And you throw that pick list in. I never put the border on. I just double clicked on it. You can do it by searching. You can do it by typing. And then you can change the quantity in there. So anything you really don't need a symbol for, use a pick list. I think I was using the example of a reinforcement channel. Say someone does a double check and they say, Leah, you have some, 60-inch wide spans and some work surfaces. I recommend adding some sort of support or reinforcement channel or something. And I say, good idea. Let's do it. So instead of just modifying the SIF file, you would, it would be a good idea to modify. I'm sorry, my husband was trying to say something to me. Just ignore that gap of time. You would add a pick list and then get it in your plan. So it's all in there. So if you're in that SIF, it would be in there. I do something similar with favorites, things that are small or just the symbol bogs down my drawing, like sometimes even with monitor arms. Well, actually, monitor arms can go in a pick list if you don't want the symbol, but favorites I use a lot with L sets. I I forget my L sets more often than I care to share. Not proud of it, but it does happen. And if you don't know L sets, they're lock sets. Maybe it's just a Hayward term, I don't know. But I have these all saved in here so I can go and pick which L set I want and then just drop it in the room. So that way when the install happens, it's all clear where each L set is going. Here's one. And I can copy it out and keep it going. So not only is it in your SIF file, but it's going to be all set for install too. Just do it once from the get-go, and then the whole rest of your project will go a little bit better. That's it for pick lists and favorites. My other note is to communicate, communicate, communicate. This drawing has no voice. The drawing speaks for itself. So when I first think of this, I think of very basic. Look at your saving structure. Make sure your design team has the same saving structure, a uniform saving structure. So a few years back, we converted ours because we were a little all over the place. It takes time to develop these things. So now we're nice and in sync with each other. Our structure goes, we have the proposal number, the floor, and then the rendition. So A, B, C, D, and so on. And the rendition changes when the customer makes a change. So if you go into someone's file, like I was saying earlier, if you go in, if you win the lottery and you're out and someone's going into your file, do they know what's appropriate to sift? Do they know where, what status? Do they know what drawing to pull up, and what status it should be? So whatever your system is, it doesn't have to be what we use, but come up with something that's universal that everyone in your company understands. I know that if there's a drawing A through F in this file, I know that F is the latest drawing. In our design department, that's just how it works, and it's great. Everything from that to how you call out your alternatives, just be clear. You might come up with a great way, a great system, and that's awesome. In this case, I've just basically tried to say everything in a clear way. So this has notes from the meeting. And by the way, I do like to do my notes from meetings right in the plan because it just, again, it's another way to keep that drawing more accountable. Um, but once you do your notes and you have your different alternatives and all that, just say what it is. I don't get crazy technical here, and you can if that works for you. I just kind of say, what's going on, and I try to use things like dates. And then, on this one, I make sure to say important things like do not use for SIF. It's also showing things off to the side, just notes for people if they went in, like don't SIF it out as is. And then this is one that is updated and validated, used this alternative for SIF on 10.8. So ideally, when you're done or when you're getting to the point of siffing something out and getting it, ordered and all that, you would go into your latest drawing and delete all your alternatives. You don't need those. They're in your previous drawing. Um, even if they change something, if you're on rendition F, it's going to be in D or one of your earlier renditions. You can grab it from there. Don't get it this super heavy, slow drawing going because you have all these alternatives that you're afraid to delete. Um, and then that makes it easier in that, like right now in this drawing, if I was ordering this product, I would probably just delete these ones and then just keep layout C. So then there's not even a question of what alternative should I use. Okay. And one more thing I want to note on the communication part of it, there's a revision history extension um, in the marketplace. It's free. Try it out. It is very helpful in kind of showing. It's kind of like the old CAD where it shows a date of modification, who did it, what the revision was. So it does kind of keep track of any of those changes that are made. And some of these projects we have are huge. There can be a lot of changes. So a way to track those changes to not only to your group, but just to yourself is a great, great tool to use. So I encourage trying that out. Um, Last thing I'll say is do not be afraid of the validate or check project button. I was always afraid of it. Now I'm into it. And look, I do have a drawing. That's a warning. Railroaded fabrics. It's just telling me I have railroaded fabrics on my 72-inch panels. So it's reminding me to put it on the other panels. It's a great little reminder, but I'm good. I already checked it. No need. I can exit out. So don't be afraid of that validate tool. Use it to help you go through and make sure your SIF is up to date. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this was helpful. It's been so nice. I'm sorry I couldn't do all of the presentations live, that internet, but it's good that we were able to do it this way. So I hope it was helpful. All right. Have a good one.